I want to do a review of the classic film Unbreakable. I'm Brian Kyle McCord. Here we go. Unbreakable, directed by M. Night Shyamalan and starring Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, isn't just a delightful study of the superhero genre, it's actually one of the best superhero movies of all time. The story centers on David Dunn, who is perplexed with the fact that he was the sole uninjured survivor of a horrific train crash. He is soon contacted by Elijah Price, a comic book collector with brittle bone disease. Elijah has been watching the news for many years during every tragedy, hoping to find a superhuman individual, a person who is opposite him, a person who is unbreakable. Throughout the course of the film, you see David as he reluctantly tries to find the answer to a question he never considered. Is he a superhero? I really just love Unbreakable. One of the best things about it is its use of like camera angles and colors. David Dunn's color is green, Elijah Price's color is purple. It's really masterful the way they designed this movie to look like comic panels in every shot. It's really interesting to look at. It's a 2000s movie, so there's a slower pacing to like the movies we have today, but honestly, it really just works on every single level. You have really fantastic, interesting characters. It's some of Bruce Willis's best acting that he's ever done, and they're not characters that you know. That's not like Superman and Batman are going at it. They aren't in other properties. So Shyamalan really gets a chance to develop these characters in this story, and I think he does a fantastic job. I think Elijah Price is probably one of the most interesting characters in any movie ever. And like I said, it's just crazy how they shoot this movie. Like, for instance, every time that Mr. Glass is introduced into a scene, it's through a reflective surface. It's really just the coolest thing. Paced really well also. Like, each scene, there's something new that you learn about Bruce Willis's character as he develops more and more and decides that maybe he is actually a superhero. A lot of people compare this film to The Sixth Sense, which I might also review at some point. I think it's the better movie of the two, and that's a really hard follow-up because The Sixth Sense is also really great. This film is just infinitely more rewatchable than The Sixth Sense. Like I said, Bruce Willis is just doing some of the best acting in his entire career in this movie. You can really see how David Dunn feels about certain things just based on Bruce Willis's acting. Sam Jackson does an incredible job playing the super interesting character with brittle bone disease. So those are just a few of the reasons that I really love Unbreakable. It's probably one of my favorite superhero movies that I've ever seen, and I rate it an instant classic. But of course, I really have to talk about the spoilers because it's a Shyamalan movie, so if you haven't seen Unbreakable, I totally recommend seeing it. So if you don't want to have the end spoiled, go check it out for yourself before I spoil it right now. Obviously, if you've been around and you've seen Unbreakable, you've known the ending for like 20 years now. The ending is the thing that absolutely seals the deal with this movie. It makes it like M. Night Shyamalan's best movie, really. Obviously, the ending is that Mr. Glass was the bad guy the entire time. He blew up the train, and he blew up the plane, and he burned down a school or something, hotel. It's such a good ending. That's part of what I'm talking about with information in this movie. The way they handle information and telling you things it's really well done. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when Price's mom is talking to him, and she's gotten him this comic book. She makes him go outside to be a real kid, I guess. So he goes outside, and he's like very careful about how he does it, and she sits on the bench with him, gives him this comic book, and there's this crazy shot where it like starts, and then the whole comic book turns upside down, and then he looks at the comic book. She looks at him, and she's like,
"There'll be one of these waiting for you every time you want to come out here. They say this one has a surprise ending."
Basically, every time his mom is on screen, it's like foreshadowing for later in the plot. She shows up later, she's talking to David Dunn, and she's like, you know, some villains are strong and they fight the hero, but then the real arch nemesis is always the smart one. And then right after that, David goes and sees Elijah, and he's like, "I killed everybody. It was me." And he's revealed to be the bad guy, and it's such a cool twist ending. As I said, this movie's also compared to The Sixth Sense a lot, and I think the twist there doesn't work quite as well. Like, it's still a crazy twist if you don't know the ending. But this movie works on a whole other level where, like, yes, both movies you can watch them a second time and get something else from the information that you already know. Like, you can watch The Sixth Sense and know the secret and like see it in a different light. But this movie, it's a crazy revelation, but like it's not central to the whole movie. Like, it doesn't really recontextualize the whole movie. And so I think it's done differently, where the actual enjoyment that you draw from the film is from watching David Dunn become a superhero, and then that twist is just the icing on the cake. Another awesome thing about this movie is the fight scene that he has just before the end of the movie, which is when there's like some real awesome old school movie fighting where it's like filmed in one shot, and like this criminal that he's trying to catch like throws him into a wall, and there's just like, he's not hurt because he's like invulnerable, but there's like a dent in the drywall. There's also a really awesome funny scene where his son keeps putting on more and more weight onto the bench press, and so he's lifting more and more weight, and it's like kind of like the Incredibles scene where he's lifting trains, but more realistic and before that. And then of course probably one of the greatest strengths of this film is where it fits within like the climate of superhero movies these days and stuff like that. Of course this was 19 years ago that this movie came out. It sort of feels like a really cool movie someone could make today. Unbreakable's greatest strength is the fact that it's a sort of a breakdown and a study on superhero movies in general, and it's really grounded and realistic in comparison to something like a Spider-Man movie or The Incredible Hulk or something like that. It's a psychological thriller about superheroes. I wish there were more movies like it. But that's all I have to say about Unbreakable, and hopefully you'll come and watch my split review and my glass review and learn about the whole trilogy. Thank you guys for watching. Bye, McCordian.